Neymar, the soccer king with the world at his feet, stepped into a prison's shadow, chasing a ghost from his past who changed everything. Before we start, let's make it fun. Comment 2 if you love underdog stories, hit like if you don't, and stay for a crazy reveal at the finish. The morning air hung heavy with mist as Neymar stepped out of a nondescript black SUV, his usual flair traded for a plain hoodie and a faded baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Sao Paulo's streets were quiet, the city still rubbing sleep from its eyes, but the looming concrete walls of the penitentiary ahead seemed to swallow the dawn's light whole. He adjusted his cap, shielding his face, not from fans, but from the weight of what he was about to do. No cameras trailed him, no reporters shouted his name. This wasn't the Neymar of packed stadiums or dazzling billboards. This was Neymar, the man, walking toward a past he'd left buried too long. His sneakers crunched against the gravel path leading to the prison's entrance, each step echoing with memories he hadn't dared touch in years. The guards at the gate exchanged glances, recognizing the silhouette of Brazil's soccer prince, but they said nothing. They waved him through, their eyes curious yet respectful, sensing this wasn't a publicity stunt. Inside, the air grew colder, the walls grayer, the clang of metal doors sharper. Neymar's heart thudded, not from nerves but from something deeper, guilt maybe, or the ache of time lost. He was here for João Silva, a name that wouldn't light up headlines but one that burned brightly in the quiet corners of Neymar's soul. João, the man who'd been more than a driver in Neymar's scrappy Santos days. João, with his beat-up Fiat, always waiting outside the training fields, rain or shine, his radio humming sertanejo tunes while Neymar, a skinny kid with oversized dreams, tossed his muddy cleats into the back seat. João, who'd listened to Neymar's teenage rants about missed goals or tough coaches, offering simple wisdom between drags of a cigarette. Keep your head down, kid. The ball doesn't lie. João, who'd once driven through a storm to get Neymar to a scout's tryout, never complaining, even when the car's engine sputtered and died halfway home. Those days felt like another lifetime now, before the fame, the private jets, the Paris lights. Neymar had soared, his name a global chant, but João? João had faded, like a song you forget the words to until it plays again. And it had played again, in the form of a letter, its shaky handwriting slicing through Neymar's polished world like a knife. "Do you remember me?" it began. 3 words that stopped him cold, sitting in his Sao Paulo penthouse, surrounded by trophies that suddenly felt hollow. João was in prison. A small theft, born of desperation, not malice. A man who'd given Neymar his yesterdays was now a number behind bars. The prison's corridors stretched long and narrow, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting shadows that danced on the cracked tiles. Neymar kept his head down, the cap hiding his eyes, but he felt the weight of every glance, guards whispering, inmates peering through cell bars, their murmurs a mix of disbelief and intrigue. "Is that?" one muttered, but Neymar didn't stop. He wasn't here for them. A guard named Carlos, broad-shouldered with a face etched by years of routine, led him forward. "He's in the visitation room," Carlos said, voice low, almost reverent. "Doesn't get many visitors. Not sure he's ready for this." Neymar nodded, his throat tight. He didn't know if he was ready either. The last time he'd seen João, Neymar was 17, waving from a bus, headed to a bigger club, João grinning from the curb, proud as a father. Then life happened. Contracts, crowds, continents. João became a memory, tucked away with childhood things, until that letter. Its words hadn't just asked for help. They demanded Neymar look in the mirror and see the kid he'd been, the one João had believed in when no one else did. The visitation room was stark. A metal table bolted to the floor, 2 plastic chairs, a flickering bulb. João sat there, head bowed, his orange jumpsuit hanging loose on a frame, worn thin by time and trouble. His hair was grey now, his hands folded like they were holding onto something fragile, maybe hope, maybe nothing at all. Neymar paused at the door, his breath catching. This wasn't the João he remembered, the one with a quick laugh and a quicker temper, who'd curse at traffic but never at Neymar's missed shots. This João looked broken, like the world had taken its swings and left him standing, but just barely. Neymar stepped inside, the door clicking shut behind him. João didn't look up. Maybe he didn't dare. Maybe he'd stopped believing in surprises. Neymar cleared his throat, but no words came. Instead, he let out a small, nervous chuckle. The same one he used to let slip after a bad pass, the one Joao always teased him about. That sound, soft but unmistakable, hit Joao like a spark. His head lifted slowly, eyes wide, searching. When they landed on Neymar, time seemed to crack open. Hold up, loving this story. Drop a 1 in the comments, hit subscribe, and keep watching for a twist that'll leave you speechless. Nay? Joao's voice was a rasp, disbelief woven into every syllable. Neymar smiled, but it was a fragile thing, trembling at the edges. His eyes stung, but he blinked it away. Yeah, man, it's me. He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled Joao into a hug, tight and unyielding, like he could squeeze away the years between them. Joao's arms hesitated, then wrapped around Neymar, his grip shaky but fierce. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Carlos, standing by the door, shifted uncomfortably, his tough exterior softening for a moment. Another figure lingered nearby. Anna, a social worker who'd been helping Joao navigate the system. Her clipboard was tucked under her arm, her eyes wide with quiet awe. She'd seen plenty in these walls, but this was something else. Neymar pulled back, his hands on Joao's shoulders, studying the man who'd once been his anchor. You look like hell, Neymar said, forcing a grin, but his voice cracked. Joao laughed, a brittle sound, and wiped at his eyes. You look too fancy for this place, kid. They sat, the cold table between them, but it might as well have been nothing. Neymar leaned forward, elbows on the metal, his cap now off, his face open and raw. I got your letter, he said. Joao's face fell, a mix of shame and relief. Didn't think you'd read it, he mumbled. Didn't think you'd care. Those words hit Neymar like a foul he hadn't seen coming. He leaned back, his chest tight. I cared, Joao. Always did. I just got lost. He didn't say fame. He didn't say money. But the weight of those things hung in the air, heavy as the chains on the prison doors. Joao nodded, his eyes distant, like he was seeing the boy Neymar used to be. Gangly, all knees and elbows, dreaming of Barcelona, while Joao drove him through Santos's muddy streets. You made it, Joao said softly. That's what matters. But his voice carried a sadness, a reminder of what he'd lost while Neymar gained the world. Neymar's mind flashed to a night years ago when Joao had driven him to a game in a neighboring town. The car had broken down, rain pounding the roof, and Joao had walked 2 miles to a gas station, returning soaked but with a jerry can and a grin. Can't let you miss your shot, kid, he'd said. Neymar had scored twice that game, his first taste of being scouted. Joao had been there, cheering from the sidelines, his voice louder than the crowd's. Now, sitting across from this ghost of that man, Neymar felt the ache of all he'd forgotten. You got me there, Joao, he said, voice low. Every practice, every game, you were there. Joao's eyes glistened, but he looked away, ashamed. I messed up, Ney. Did something stupid. Thought I could fix things for my grandson, but... He trailed off, his hands trembling. Neymar reached across the table, grabbing Joao's wrist. You're not your mistake, he said firmly. You're the guy who got me to where I am, and I'm not letting you stay here. Anna, standing quietly in the corner, scribbled something on her clipboard, her eyes darting between them. She'd heard Joao's story before, widowed, broke, a grandson to feed, a bad choice that landed him here. But seeing Neymar, the Neymar, sit here like a regular guy, talking to Joao like family, it shifted something in her. Carlos, too, seemed affected, his usual stoic mask slipping as he watched. Neymar pulled a folded paper from his pocket, his handwriting scrawled across it. I wrote this for you, he said, sliding it to Joao. Read it later, when you're alone. But know this, I'm sorry. I should have been there for you like you were for me. Joao's fingers brushed the paper, his eyes locked on it like it was a lifeline. He didn't open it, just held it, his knuckles white. You didn't owe me nothing, he whispered. Neymar shook his head. I owe you everything. The silence that followed was heavy, but not empty. It was full of things unsaid, memories shared, promises forming. Neymar glanced at Anna, who gave a small nod as if to say she'd help however she could. Carlos cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "Time's almost up," he said, softer than usual. Neymar stood, but he didn't want to leave. Not yet. He looked at João, whose face was a map of pain and hope, and made a decision. "I'm getting you out," he said. "Lawyers, whatever it takes. And when you're out, you're not alone. Not anymore." João's eyes widened, a flicker of something, maybe belief, returning to them. Neymar leaned in, voice fierce. "You believed in me when I was nothing. Now it's my turn." As he turned to leave, João called after him, voice breaking. "Nay, thank you." Neymar didn't turn back, not because he didn't want to, but because he was afraid he'd break if he did. The door closed behind him, the sound echoing like a promise sealed. Outside, the mist had lifted, the sun breaking through in sharp golden rays. Neymar slid into the SUV, his cap back on, his mind racing. João's letter was still in his pocket. Its words burned into him. He thought of the kid he'd been, the man he was now, and the man he wanted to be. This wasn't just about João, it was about all the Joãos, the people who lift you up then get left behind. As the car pulled away, Neymar stared out the window, Sao Paulo blurring past. He'd be back, not just for João, but for something bigger, something that could change more than one life. The prison faded in the rear view, but João's face stayed with him, a reminder of where he'd come from, and where he needed to go. To keep going, smash that like button, comment epic below, and don't skip, the ending's got a surprise you won't believe. Neymar leaned back in the plush leather seat of his Sao Paulo penthouse, the city's skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows, a stark contrast to the grey walls of the prison he'd left hours ago. The silence here was different, clean, sterile, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner and the distant clink of glasses from his kitchen, where his assistant prepped coffee. His phone buzzed with notifications, sponsors, teammates, a text from his sister about dinner, but he ignored it, his eyes fixed on a small worn photo on the glass coffee table. It was him, 17, all grin and wild hair, standing next to João Silva outside a Santos field. João's arm slung over his shoulder like a proud uncle. The memory hit hard. João selling his old watch to buy Neymar a pair of cleats when his own were falling apart. "You need to shine, kid," João had said, shrugging off Neymar's protests. Now, that same João was wasting away behind bars, and Neymar felt the weight of every year he'd let slip by without a call, a visit, a damn thank you. He stood, pacing the sleek hardwood floor, his sneakers silent against the polish. The letter João sent was still in his pocket, its creases worn from being unfolded, and read again. "Do you remember me?" João had written, and Neymar couldn't stop remembering. The rides to practice, João's voice cutting through the static of an old radio, telling stories of his own youth, dreams of being a mechanic, a life derailed by bills and bad luck. Neymar had been too young to understand then, too focused on the ball, the goal, the crowd. Now, at 30, with the world at his feet, he saw it clearly. João had been his anchor, and he'd let him drift away. The guilt gnawed, sharp and relentless, but it wasn't just guilt driving him now. It was something fiercer, anger at himself, at the system that chewed up men like João, at the world that forgot the people who built its heroes. A knock at the door snapped him out of it. Mariana, his lawyer, stepped in, her sharp suit and sharper eyes a reminder of the power Neymar could wield. She carried a thick folder, legal documents spilling out, her face all business. "I've got a team looking into João's case," she said, setting the folder on the table. "Petty theft, but the circumstances, poverty, his grandson's medical bills, could sway a judge. We're pushing for early release." Neymar nodded, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying João's face in that visitation room, the way his hands shook when he held Neymar's letter. "I want more than a release," Neymar said, voice low. "I want him out, with a life waiting, a home, a job, his family back." Mariana raised an eyebrow, used to Neymar's impulsiveness, but not this kind of fire. "That's a tall order," she said. "His daughter, Clara, she's not talking to him. Thinks he abandoned her. Neymar's jaw tightened. Clara, Joao's daughter, barely a teen when Neymar last saw her, always tagging along in the back seat, braiding her hair while Joao drove. He hadn't even thought to ask about her in years. The next day, Neymar sat in a small office at the prison, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee and paperwork. Anna, the social worker from his visit, sat across from him, her glasses perched low on her nose as she flipped through Joao's file. "He's been invisible here," she said, her voice soft but firm. "No visitors except you. The other inmates, some respect him, some don't. He keeps to himself, but he's breaking." Neymar's stomach twisted. He pictured Joao alone in his cell, the man who'd once laughed loud enough to drown out a thunderstorm now reduced to silence. Anna leaned forward, her eyes searching his. "Why now, Neymar? After all this time?" He didn't answer right away, his fingers tracing the edge of the photo he'd brought, the same one he'd given Joao. "Because I owe him," he said finally, "and because I'm starting to see how many people like him get left behind." Anna nodded, her face softening. She'd seen too many broken men in these walls, but Neymar's presence, his raw, unguarded emotion, was new. "If you're serious," she said, "start with his daughter. Clara's angry, but she's hurting. She needs to see Joao's not the villain she thinks." Neymar found Clara through Anna's contacts, tracking her to a small apartment in a noisy Sao Paulo suburb. She was 25 now, a single mom with a toddler, Joao's grandson scraping by as a cashier. When Neymar showed up at her door, no entourage, just him in jeans and a hoodie, her eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice sharp, arms crossed. The toddler clung to her leg, staring at Neymar with wide, curious eyes. "I'm here about your dad," Neymar said, and Clara's face hardened. "He's not my dad anymore," she snapped. "He chose crime over us." Neymar swallowed, the weight of her words hitting like a tackle. He saw Joao in her. Same stubborn jaw, same fire in the eyes. "He made a mistake," Neymar said, keeping his voice steady. "But he was there for me when I had nothing. He talked about you all the time, Clara. You and your son. He did what he did for you." Clara's lips trembled, but she turned away, hiding her face. "He left us," she whispered. Neymar didn't push. He left a card with his number and a note. "When you're ready, I'll help you see him." Yo, if this is hitting you in the feels, like and subscribe, toss a fire in the comments, and stay tuned for a wild reveal. Back at his penthouse, Neymar couldn't sit still. He poured coffee, let it go cold, stared at the city below. His mind churned with memories. Joao fixing a flat tire in the rain, Joao sneaking him an extra sandwich when his mom couldn't afford dinner, Joao cheering louder than anyone when Neymar scored his first professional goal. He'd taken it all for granted, swept up in the whirlwind of fame, Paris, Barcelona, the roar of crowds. Now Joao's letter and Clara's anger were like mirrors, showing him the cost of his absence. He called Mariana, his voice urgent. "Get me everything on Joao's case, medical records for his grandson too, and find a place, a house, small but decent, somewhere he can start over." Mariana paused, then said, "You're going all in, aren't you?" Neymar didn't answer. He didn't need to. The fire in his chest was answer enough. The next week, Neymar was back at the prison, this time with a plan. He sat across from Joao again, the visitation room just as cold, just as grey, but the air felt different, charged, like before a big match. Joao looked better, a faint spark in his eyes, like Neymar's first visit had lit something inside him. "You didn't have to come back," Joao said, his voice stronger now. Neymar slid a folder across the table. Legal papers, a photo of a modest house, a letter he'd written the night before, his handwriting messy, but sincere. "This is for you," Neymar said. "Lawyers are working on your case. There's a place waiting when you get out. For you and your grandson." Joao stared at the papers, his hands frozen. "And Clara," Neymar added. "I'm trying to bring her to you." Joao's eyes shot up, wide with hope and fear. "She hates me," he whispered. Neymar shook his head. "She's hurt. That's different. I'll fix it." Anna watched from the corner, her clipboard forgotten, her eyes soft with something like pride. Carlos, the guard, lingered by the door, his usual scowl replaced by a quiet nod. He'd overheard inmates talking about Neymar's visit, how it had stirred something in the prison, a ripple of respect, maybe even hope. Joao's fingers traced the photo of the house, his voice barely audible. I stole to pay for my grandson's medicine, thought I could make it right. Neymar leaned forward, his voice fierce. You will make it right, not by stealing, by being the man I know you are. Joao's eyes filled, but he didn't cry. He clutched the letter, his knuckles white, and nodded. You're still that kid, he said, a small smile breaking through. Stubborn as hell. Neymar laughed, the sound echoing in the small room, and for a moment they were back in that old Fiat, the world simple and full of dreams. That night, Neymar sat in his penthouse, the city's lights sprawling below like a sea of stars. He thought of Clara, her anger a wall he'd have to climb. He thought of Joao, his pride battered but not gone. And he thought of himself, not the star, but the kid who'd needed Joao's faith to make it. The idea hit him like a perfect pass. A foundation, something to help people like Joao, people the world forgot. He grabbed his phone, texting Mariana. Set up a meeting. I want to start something. Call it New Start. For ex-inmates, second chances. Mariana's reply was instant. You're crazy. I'm in. Neymar smiled, the first real smile in days. He looked at the photo of him and Joao still on the table and felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about saving Joao. It was about saving a piece of himself, too. Before we roll on, show some love. Comment 2 if you're hooked, like if you're not, and stick around for a crazy plot twist. The Sao Paulo sun hung low, painting the streets gold as Neymar's SUV rolled through a quiet neighborhood, far from the glitz of his usual haunts. The houses here were modest, their paint chipped but proud, kids kicking a scuffed soccer ball in the street. Neymar's hands gripped the wheel, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror where Joao Silva sat, silent, staring out the window. Joao's orange jumpsuit was gone, replaced by a crisp white shirt and jeans, but his hands still trembled, clutching a small duffel bag like it held his entire life. It had been weeks since Neymar's last visit to the prison, weeks of legal battles, late-night calls with Mariana, his lawyer, and tense meetings with Clara, Joao's estranged daughter. Today was different. Today, Joao was free. Early release granted for good behavior and a case bolstered by Neymar's resources. The air in the car was thick, not with tension, but with something unspoken, something fragile and new. Neymar glanced back, catching Joao's eyes, wide and disbelieving, like a man waking from a long, bad dream. Ready for this, man? Neymar asked, his voice light but his heart heavy. Joao nodded, his throat too tight for words. The car slowed in front of a small house, its walls freshly painted, a tiny garden blooming out front. This was it, Joao's new start. Neymar stepped out first, the street sounds wrapping around him. Kids laughing, a dog barking, the hum of life. Joao followed, his steps slow, like he was testing the ground, afraid it might vanish. The house was simple, nothing like Neymar's penthouse, but it had a warmth the prison never could. Neymar had made sure of it. Curtains picked by Anna, the social worker, furniture donated through his contacts, a fridge stocked for Joao and his grandson, Lucas. Joao paused at the gate, his eyes tracing the house's outline, his breath uneven. This is mine? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Neymar grinned, tossing him the keys. Yours and Lucas's. No rent, no debt. Just you, living. Joao caught the keys, his fingers closing around them like they were a lifeline. He didn't move, just stood there, the weight of freedom sinking in. Neymar clapped a hand on his shoulder, guiding him forward. Come on, let's see it. Inside the house smelled of fresh paint and possibility. The living room was small but bright, sunlight streaming through a window onto a couch and a coffee table. On the wall hung a framed photo, Neymar and Joao years ago, outside a Santos stadium, Joao's grin wide as Neymar held up his first professional jersey. Joao froze, his eyes locked on the frame, his hand reaching out but stopping short, like he didn't trust himself to touch it. You kept this? he asked, his voice cracking. Neymar nodded, his own throat tight. Had to. That day, you were prouder than me. Joao's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile, and for a moment they were back in that moment, the world full of promise, no bars between them. Neymar pointed to a hallway. Lucas's room is down there. Got a bed with soccer sheets. Kid's gonna lose it. Joao's eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. He just nodded, clutching the keys tighter, like they anchored him to this new reality. The door creaked open behind them, and Clara stepped in, her toddler, Lucas, clinging to her hand. Her face was guarded, her eyes red from a morning of tears, but she was here. Neymar had spent weeks convincing her, meeting her in coffee shops, listening to her anger at Joao for his choices, at Neymar for disappearing, at the world for breaking her family. He'd promised to make it right, not with money, but with truth, showing her Joao's letter, the one Neymar had written back, the legal papers proving he was fighting for her father. Clara had softened, bit by bit, until she agreed to this moment. Now she stood in the doorway, her gaze flicking from Joao to Neymar. Joao turned, his breath catching. Clara, he said, the word a plea. She didn't move at first, her arms crossed, but Lucas broke the tension, toddling forward with a shy grin. Grandpa? He asked, and Joao dropped to his knees, pulling the boy into a hug that said everything words couldn't. Clara's eyes softened, and she stepped closer, her voice low. I'm not ready to forgive you, she told Joao, but I'm here. Joao nodded, tears spilling now, his arms still around Lucas. Neymar watched, his chest tight, knowing this was just a start. Outside, Anna waited by her car, her clipboard tucked away, a rare smile on her face. She'd helped coordinate the house, the release, even Clara's reluctant return, her quiet efficiency a backbone to Neymar's plan. Carlos, the prison guard, was there too, off duty, his usual scowl replaced by something softer. He'd seen Joao's transformation in the prison, how Neymar's visits had sparked something in him, how he'd started helping younger inmates, sharing books Anna brought. Carlos had told Neymar late one night over coffee that he wanted to help others like Joao. Neymar had nodded, already planning something bigger. Now, as they gathered in the small front yard, Neymar felt the pieces coming together. This isn't just about you, Joao, he said, his voice steady. It's about everyone like you. I'm starting something, a foundation, new start, for guys who need a second shot. Joao looked up, still holding Lucas, his eyes wide. You're doing that for me? Neymar shook his head. For all of us. The next week, Neymar stood at a community center in Sao Paulo, the room packed with local leaders, ex-inmates, and families. The New Start Foundation was launching, its logo, a soccer ball breaking through chains, projected on a screen. Neymar had poured his own money into it, hiring Ana to run outreach, Carlos to train mentors, even Mariana to handle legal support. João stood at the back, Lucas on his shoulders, watching as Neymar spoke. I forgot someone who helped me become who I am, Neymar said, his voice raw, no trace of the showman. João Silva believed in me when I was nothing. Now I'm believing in him and in everyone who deserves a chance to rebuild. The crowd clapped, but João's eyes were on Neymar, a quiet pride shining through. After the speech, João approached, holding out a small, folded paper. Wrote this for you, he said, his voice steady for the first time in years. Neymar took it, recognizing the shaky handwriting from João's prison letter. He didn't read it yet, just tucked it into his pocket, his hand lingering there like it was something sacred. Let's keep it moving. Drop a heart emoji in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and don't miss the jaw-dropping end. Later, they stood on a dusty soccer field nearby, kids running drills under João's watchful eye. He'd taken the job Neymar offered, coaching youth, teaching them not just kicks but grit, the way he'd once taught Neymar. Clara was there too, her arms less crossed, her smile less guarded. Lucas chased a ball, his laughter cutting through the evening air. Neymar watched, leaning against a goalpost, the weight of the past months lifting. He thought of the prison, the cold visitation room, the letter that had changed everything. He thought of Clara's anger, João's shame, his own guilt, and how they'd all found a way forward, not perfect, but real. Carlos jogged over, clapping Neymar's shoulder. "You're doing good, man," he said, his voice gruff but warm. Neymar nodded, his eyes on Joao, who was showing a kid how to trap a ball, his old confidence creeping back. "We're doing good," Neymar corrected, and for the first time in a long time, he felt whole. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the field. Neymar pulled Joao's letter from his pocket, unfolding it under the fading light. "You gave me a reason to keep going," Joao had written. "Now I'm giving it back to you." Neymar's eyes stung, but he smiled. He looked at Joao, at Clara, at Lucas, at the kids playing with dreams as big as his once were. This was more than a foundation, more than a house or a job. It was a promise kept, a debt repaid, a life rebuilt. As the kids cheered a goal, Joao turned, catching Neymar's eye, and raised a hand. A small wave, like the ones he used to give from the curb. Neymar waved back, his heart full. The game went on, and so did they, together. Neymar's journey to reconnect with Joao Silva, a man who shaped his early dreams, is more than a heartwarming tale. It's a mirror reflecting the human condition, our flaws, and our capacity for redemption. This story stirred something deep in me, a mix of awe, guilt, and hope, as it laid bare the power of gratitude and the cost of forgetting those who lift us up. Neymar, a global icon draped in fame, could have ignored Joao's letter, letting it sink into the noise of his star-studded life. Instead, he chose to face his past, to step into the cold, grey walls of a prison, and to embrace a man the world had discarded. That choice, raw and unguarded, hit me hard. It forced me to think about the people I've lost touch with, friends, mentors, family, who believed in me when I was just a kid with big dreams. How many have I let fade, swept up in my own race to make it? The story's emotional weight lies in its honesty. Even heroes like Neymar can falter, but they can also rise by owning their mistakes. The reunion between Neymar and Joao, marked by tears and a fierce hug, felt like a punch to the chest. It wasn't just about two men meeting after years apart. It was about rebuilding a bridge burned by time and neglect. Joao's shame, his trembling hands clutching Neymar's letter, mirrored the quiet pain of anyone who's felt forgotten. Neymar's response, not just words, but action, with lawyers, a house, a job, showed what redemption looks like. It's not grand gestures for the cameras. It's showing up, listening, and giving someone their dignity back. I felt inspired by Neymar's refusal to let Joao stay invisible. It made me question how often I overlook the struggles of those around me, assuming they're fine or too far gone to help. The story's power is in its call to see the unseen, to reach out before it's too late. Clara's arc, her anger melting into cautious hope, added another layer. Her resentment toward Joao and Neymar was relatable. How many of us hold grudges against those who've let us down, even when they're trying to make amends? Her slow return to Joao, sparked by Neymar's persistence, showed that healing is messy but possible. It reminded me that forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a process, built on trust and time. Ana and Carlos, the social worker and guard, brought depth to the story, their quiet support showing how small acts, listening, advocating, believing, can ripple outward. Their presence made me think about the unsung heroes in my life, the ones who show up without fanfare. The story's emotional climax, Joao's release, and the launch of the New Start Foundation left me hopeful but challenged. Neymar didn't just save Joao, he created a legacy to save others. That's the kind of impact I want to strive for, not just in big ways, but in daily choices. The lessons here are clear and practical. First, gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's an action. Don't wait to thank those who've shaped you. Reach out now, before life pulls you apart. I've started making a list of people I need to call, old teachers, childhood friends, even family I've drifted from. A text, a coffee, a real conversation can mean more than we know. Second, mistakes don't define us, but how we fix them does. Neymar's guilt could have paralyzed him, but he turned it into purpose. When I mess up, miss a deadline, snap at a friend, or neglect someone, I can own it, apologize, and act to make it right. Third, second chances are powerful. Joao's transformation from a broken man to a coach inspiring kids shows that no one is beyond redemption. I can apply this by giving others grace, coworkers, strangers, even myself, when they stumble. Finally, systemic change matters. Neymar's foundation tackled the root issues trapping men like Joao. In my life, I can support local programs, volunteer, or advocate for those society overlooks, turning empathy into impact. This story's biggest takeaway is that our past shapes us, but our choices define us. Neymar could have stayed the untouchable star, but he chose to be human, to rebuild what was broken. That's a challenge I'm taking to heart. To live with intention, to value people over pride, and to act when it counts. It's not about being perfect, it's about showing up, even when it's hard. If this story moved you like it did me, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that inspire real change. Drop a comment below. Who's someone you want to reconnect with? Or what's a second chance you've given or received? Let's keep this conversation going and make a difference together.